I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. He's dialing
So,
straight in from the school?
yes, got right from the school, absolutely. We've no children in today. They're all off. We have a teacher training day, so not too bad.
That's nice. Bit of calm, bit of relaxing time.
I love the kids. The hustle and the bustle is what I do best. You know, I don't like being stuck in these walls. I get into the classrooms.
That's true. I can see that. Well, let's just kick off with a brief introduction to this film, Young Plato. If people don't know anything about it, what can they expect if they watch it?
Wow, big question. Love it. Almost philosophical.
Well, yeah.
Well, what they're going to see is how children use philosophy and pastoral care to empower them in their thinking and in their daily lives. You'll see how certain children will struggle with their emotions and how they use philosophy to help them. You will also see how the school has a history connected sort of to violence with regards to the Troubles and the Holy Cross Girls debacle. And how children respond to that, and how what we're trying to do is we're trying to give children a clearer and a sharper mind. We're trying to get them to develop a disposition to sort of good thinking habits and that sort of skills. You will also see, you know, the parents and how they're brought on board with the philosophy, and I suppose me doing an awful lot of teaching philosophy as well. It's very hard to watch yourself on the big screen, so it really is. You know, I don't mind listening to my voice, but seeing myself up on the big screen, it's a bit tough.
I can imagine. I don't even like this much, you know, with the screen, so I can't imagine watching it on the big screen. And tell us a bit about the genesis of this project. So where did it all begin? I mean, I guess you're doing your job, teaching philosophy in your way. You know, when were you first approached, and kind of how did you feel about that? You know, having a camera come into your workplace and kind of get a peek behind the scenes of what you do.
Well, how I was approached was it was actually a past pupil by the name of Colin Dorr. He came to talk to me, and I said, "Look, I've got a philosophy class here." And he said, "What? You've what? Sorry." I says, "Well, I take children for philosophy." And he says, "Could I come along?" I said, "Certainly you can." So away he came, and he sat in the class, and at the end, I just, wow, that is unbelievable what you're doing with those children. You know, I've never seen anything like that before. He says, "I have a friend who's a filmmaker. I'd love him to talk to you and maybe do something about this, get it on the news or something." I says, "Yes, certainly. Of course, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care." And up came his friend Declan, who is the sound man on the movie. And he approached me and he says, "Listen, how would you feel about, you know, cameras coming in?" But he brought up this other guy, a guy called Eamon Molly, and Eamon wanted to put a camera in every classroom and do sort of an Essex-based sort of thing, you know. And I thought, no, I don't really like that. And he says, "Well, what about one camera?" And I says, "Well, at least I could control one camera." Now, even though it was one camera, and you had Nessa, she's a big backpack on, and he had the big microphone, and they actually became ghosts in the machine. You know, I actually forgotten they were there. They were that good, you know. And the beauty of the two of them was they would have gone into class and they wouldn't be recording. They was just getting the children used to them being there. That's why it's the sort of observational idea. And the children just became used to them, and they just went on about their daily lives, and you never see them sort of looking into the camera or any was ever talking into the camera. And that's what makes it so special. That it took a long time for the children sort of to get used to them. Now you're talking nearly, well, I remember saying at the QFT it was 1,200 hours, but that was me being flippant because the 1,200 hours were all on me, and it took them that long to get an hour and a half. I was being flippant, but it was 200 hours of recording, and what they did to bring that down to an hour and 40 minutes is something special. Now, there's an awful lot left out, which, Sarah, I would have wanted in. We do take our kids up to the local old people's home, and we do a lot of philosophy with the old people, that intergenerational work, which is amazing. And I mean amazing. There's some of those old people up there who lived during the war and who knew about rationing, and the kids were talking about morality and the law, and how it used to be that you could drink and drive, and you could smoke on airplanes, you could smoke wherever you wanted, you didn't have to wear your seatbelt. Teachers used to hit you, and the kids were like, aghast, what? Are you serious? So they were recounting all their experiences, and then sort of philosophizing. Well, what do you think? What is the purpose of life then? You've lived yours. How would you see that now? And the way the interaction with kids was amazing. Now we caught an awful lot of it on film, but it wasn't used in the movie, which I thought it would have been a sort of good part to show, because at that time there was a Cadbury's advert looking at loneliness, and they were putting loneliness on the bars of chocolate, and we responded to that, and up we went to all the, and they absolutely love us. They love us. So I'm sorry, I do digress. My apologies. So it's lovely just to see how articulate and how grounded and thoughtful the children are. We have this approach in the school called TTR, and it's think, respond. If I ask them a question, I want them to think about it, and then respond. And you see them doing that, because you have to have thinking time. Sometimes when a child's asked a question, they go, and all of a sudden the sort of reptilian brain takes over, and they're like, oh, it's all scrambled, and they know the answer, but nothing will come out. So I'm trying to show them the difference between what's stress and what is relaxation, and I teach them about the mind. I teach them about where the emotions are and where they come from, that amygdala and that prefrontal cortex with decision making and all this. And so we do an awful lot about the growth mindset, the fixed mindset, the brain, and it all sort of marries together, with the philosophy as well. So I want them to understand why they think the way they do.
Mm-hmm. And what I think is interesting about the documentary is, obviously we spend most of the time in your classroom with the kids, kind of, dealing with kind of day-to-day issues that arise. But then there are these flashes of, archival footage of violence, like you said, of the girls' school. And so, what do you think the effect of that is? I think for me, when I watch it, it almost feels like the school becomes a sanctuary. And it feels like it's kind of a little bubble away from the outside world, away from, what obviously a lot of them have kind of troubled situations at home. So, and what do you think the effect of that is, kind of making that contrast between what's happened in the past, what's happening outside, and what's happening in the school?
Yeah, well, listen, the idea of showing them the history and getting them to talk about it is that you're preparing them for the outside world. You're preparing them for if should anything like this happens again. You're giving them that resilience and that thinking power to be able to go, well, I'm not going to accept this anymore, or here's what I'm going to do. I'll challenge that, because as I say to the kids, challenge leads to change. And I say to them, look, you need to internalize and sort of naturalize good thinking. And once you do that, and once you have that power within you to use your voice, you will make the difference. But I do say to them, please also allow a difference to be made to you. Just don't go out to make the difference, and allow that difference to be made to you. And I think that's an important message for them. And you can see how they respond. That's raw. That was the first time they'd seen that, and that was the beauty of capturing those raw emotions, and how the children, and how there was kids in that class, to the children in that class whose mothers were in that video. They saw their mothers and their kids, seeing kids, and it was awesome. It really, really was. But what happened obviously wasn't, but I mean what was captured with the thinking within the class, and how they responded, and that their thinking, that was not scripted. What you hear from those kids is them using the philosophy in the right way. We have like this 4-hour approach. When they watch that, what they do is they reflect on it, and that's the first hour, and then in their head they're sort of reasoning a response, which is the second hour, and then they will respond, which is the third hour, and then they will reevaluate. So they'll listen to other boys, and they will maybe in the later better reasoning, their thinking changes. You know, that I once thought that, but having listened to one of the boys in the class, and I think this, and that's the reevaluation, and that's fantastic to see that all a natural maturation, a natural unfolding of that right before my very eyes, and especially when, you know, there's no body of knowledge needed to engage here. No body of knowledge. I mean, in a conceptual inquiry, you know, I suppose philosophy is the only subject entirely dedicated to thinking, and it's a way of thinking about questions. And you see, when I ask the questions, the thinking that goes on before the answers are given. You know, and a lot of my friends, will say, "Yes, scripted," and listen, it's not. And I'm not scripted, and they're not scripted. You know, it's just a pure observation and purely what goes on in this school. You know, it's not, there's nothing sort of set up per se, you know.
The other thing that really strikes me is your kind of endless optimism and patience. And, you know, when we do kind of hear of what's, you know, the backdrop of, you know, drug use and continuing violence, and, you know, sometimes even after all the lessons you've been teaching the kids, they've gone home and their father said to him, if you get hit, always hit back, you know, and this idea that violence breeds violence. And do you ever feel hopeless? And how do you kind of maintain that position of optimism? Do you feel optimism for the future, or is it something you have to work at yourself?
No, I do. I really feel optimism for the future because, you know, we teach best what we want to learn the most. Okay, and that's within me. I'm still learning about philosophy. You know, I'm learning every day. I mean, there's no way that I'm going to know everything about philosophy. It's a learning curve for me too. So, knowing how thinking has affected the past, you know, and knowing how thinking will affect the future gives me optimism. Because if you look at the case of Rosa Parks, obviously in Montgomery, on that bus one day, she says, "That's it, no more, I'm not getting up with this." See, and that thinking there changed history, you know. And Mahatma Gandhi, say for example, you know, when he was on the train and he was first class passenger, he's a solicitor, and he was told, get to the back of the train, and he said, "Listen, I'm not doing it, but I'm going to do it in a non-violent way." You know, again, history changer, Martin Luther King, all these people who have changed our history from their actions. And I'm saying to my boys, you can do that. You have the power to do that. And that's why I'm saying that you boys have the power to change this. You boys have the power to do that. You know, and it's all about using this voice and using it in the right way. So yes, I am very optimistic about the future of obviously this country. And I'm hoping that this message gets across the world, that the children use their thinking, and that what we're looking for is successful kids who are wise and kind, and we don't need any more of these dictators and these leaders. Nobody wants violence. Nobody wants war. I mean, we certainly don't. We all want to live in a peaceful and tranquil society, and just to get on with our lives and to be happy. And again, there's the philosophical question in itself. What is happiness? You know, and we could go on a debate about that, and we do that in here. You know, we answer that question, and we look at the whole idea of eudaimonia. And I give the children like a triangle, and in it says at the top, living with ariete, accept whatever happens and taking responsibility. That's what leads to eudaimonia, and eudaimonia is a Greek word meaning happiness. You know, so I'm teaching that to the kids. I'm teaching them how to have that positive thinking mindset, because we look at growth mindset, we look at fixed mindset, we do it all.
And in that sense, you know, what do you hope will be the main impact of this film? Because I guess it it's quite educational for people such as myself who don't even know, exactly what's happened and in your community, in your area back in history, and what you're doing in your school. But there's also something quite universal in thinking about how we raise our kids in an era of social media. We saw the glimpse of some of the awful things that happen to kids when they're playing on PlayStation or playing online. And then also thinking about the fact this film's coming out, with what's going on in Ukraine, and we're seeing these endless images of children being separated from their fathers, having to see violence. And there's some message in there that, about resilience, about breaking cycles, and, we can look to the future with positivity, despite what might be happening in our present.
Yeah. Listen, what's going on in the world at the minute affects us all, and that will affect our mental health and well-being. Okay, so this film is about using philosophy to promote mental health and well-being, so that the children do have the resilience to see, yes, we can support, and yes, we can do things that we're given, but we still have our lives to lead, and we still have to look after our own mental health and well-being, and the mental health and well-being of our families as well. And unfortunately, what is going on in the world does affect us all, and I'm hoping that the message that comes out from this film is that, we have children of the future. It's about giving them the right skills and the right mindset to take us forward into a peaceful society. Quality is not an act; it's a skill, and Aristotle said that, and I'm a firm believer in that, because when you give children sort of a thinking habit rather than a thinking skill, where they do it naturally, and they're not afraid to voice their opinion, it's something that should be in all schools. It's something that should be in all societies. Look to our children to be our future. Trust that if they get the right education, that they can take us into a future that we could all be proud of, that we can give them a pathway where they have all these skills and dispositions for learning on board, and that they're not afraid to make the right choices and the right thinking, to sort of make sure that that they're always looking after the mental health, because as you know, the suicide rate here is high, and we don't need more death. I mean, you saw in the film there's 20 past people. I see them as 10-year-olds. I don't see them as 18, 19-year-olds, and that's tough for me as a principal, that I've had all those children in here, and so you're looking at, that's a whole classroom of children that we've lost to suicide and drugs, and that's all about that mental health. Now, what's impacting the likes of Ukraine is something different. That separation from families, that not knowing what the future holds, and it's absolutely awful. And as a father, it just tears me apart inside how I would feel should the situation be reversed and it happen here. So we all need to do our bit with regards to help, and I know we are, and I know as a society we are. We've all responded well in what we're sending out to charity that we're doing, and the giving from each of our homes. But if I was to say, and I'll go back to this, if I was to say, what do I really want from this film? It's to have successful students who are wise and kind, and I'll say that once, and I'll say it again, and every parent, that's all we want. That's all we want for our children. That's what teachers want. That's what society wants, that we have these children, and this is the way to do it for them. There's a way that works, and just trust in it, trust in what you're doing. Now, you're going to meet naysayers. I've met naysayers who say, no way, never work with children. No. I say, no, I believe it will. And I want the world to see that it does. So I digress there.
That's great. Well, I think I'm out of time, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And I feel like I've had a philosophy lesson. I feel inspired now to go and educate my son in a better way than I've been. But it's lovely to speak to you, and I can't wait for everyone else to see this really incredible and insightful documentary. It's really, really a wonderful watch. So thanks so much for your time.
Sarah, it has been an absolute pleasure. Have a brilliant day, and give my son his best, and say to him, philosophy is the way forward, son. Philosophy. And get him onto YouTube, get him looking at Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, a wee bit of Stoicism. That's his starting point. And then he say, oh, I do think like that, mommy.